Hello everyone, welcome back to another Quickfire review. It's Scunthorpe United, this time the team in focus, and I'm delighted to be joined by Bradley Mell, the host of the Ironbru Podcast. It's a fantastic podcast, well worth a listen, covering Scunthorpe United. Brad, welcome to the channel, welcome to our YouTube channel.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm very glad to be back with D3D4 for a little bit, actually, because obviously we started out with you guys, so it's we've got the podcast basically because of my work with you, so I do appreciate that.
No, that's fine, mate. No, it's great seeing you go from strength to strength. I remember your articles in our early days. It's good to see you moving on. But we will jump in because we've got several questions to ask you, and I'm going to start with Scunthorpe United's performance against expectations. How's it been?
I think if you look at the league position, I think it's more or less what we expected. We're obviously about 18th now, and at the start of the season, we had fans were saying anywhere between sort of 12th and 20th. So I think on the face of it, we are about where we thought we'd be.
Yeah.
The journey getting there has been very different because
stressful, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And you know what League Two is like. Yeah. There was moments where we had a bit of momentum and we were like 6 points off the playoffs at one point, which was ridiculous for how we've been this season.
Yeah.
Also, there's been times, certainly at the start of the season, where we were, very, very concerned about staying in the league this year. And they were genuine concerns. And the fact that I think we have got safety, ultimately, I think for this season should be seen as a successful season, really, for that.
Yeah, especially in a COVID year. Imagine being in the drop zone and risking going down in COVID. It's not a good time. Yeah. Who has been your best player?
I think there's a few that stand out. For say the season, how it's been and the performances, we have actually had a few that have stood out. I'm sure we'll mention them throughout this talk. But I think for me, I'm going to go with Alex Gilead because I think he's not maybe gets the same plaudits as players like John McAtee or Abo Issa, sort of flair players. But Gilead, for me, he's right up there. He's been solid, like every game he plays. Obviously there's dips in form throughout the season, but
he rarely has a bad game, though, does he?
Very rarely. And what we noticed as well, when he got taken out of the team, we actually lost quite a bit of attacking threat. And for a player that doesn't necessarily score the goals himself, we really noticed what he brings to the team when he was taken out of it. And I think for me, he'd be top of the list to sign for next season, but I think it's very unlikely, unfortunately. But no, Alex Gilead for me, he's been fantastic pretty much every game.
I agree. I think from the players that I've watched in Scunthorpe games, he's stood out. I think he's a good ball carrier, gets you in advanced positions quite well, and I think you miss him when he's not there. Who's the player that surprised you the most, good or bad?
I think you could maybe say Alfie Beeston. He's been a surprise because we had him signed up from last year, but he's really come into centre midfield and he's really taken his chance. So he would be a good one. However, I think the player that surprised me the most is Mason O'Malley, who's our left back. Yeah. And he's someone that's come through our youth setup. So we've not had that for a long time. And at the start of the season, we were really concerned about the defence and certainly left back because we didn't have Junior Brown at this point, and we were looking like we were going in with no, not an obvious choice for left back because we'd not really seen Mason O'Malley before this season. Certainly not professionally anyway. And he's really taken his chance. He's come in, he's made himself the number one left back. He's slotted right in alongside much more experienced players. He's got a fantastic cross on him, so that's getting forward. That's great, and he's been rewarded throughout the season because he's got a call up for the under-21s for Republic of Ireland.
Yeah,
and
I saw that,
he played in that game, and it was we're a League Two club, so to get noticed for that and to get that call up, even at an under-21 level, he's had a fantastic season, and I think to say that we'd not seen him before this season. That's why I'm picking him for most surprising because he's just really slotted in, and I didn't expect such a young player to be just fit in that naturally.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, he's been a pleasant surprise, hasn't he? Definitely. Has. Right. So, who's been your best signing?
Yeah. So, if you look back at the summer, I think Emmanuel Onarise was the player that we expected to be the best of the pick that we had then. And I think he's proven that. He looks a very good acquisition. But it was the dealings that we did in January and around that time that's really sort of helped us. Because like I said earlier, we genuinely were in trouble first part of the season. We were letting in sort of 4 or 5 goals a game. And, we were right down there. And players like... Mark Howard, who came in goal. He's sort of added that experience. George Taft, who we've got from Bolton, and we've signed him up for another 2-3 years. So, that's a one for the future. I think that's a great bit of business because, he's a brilliant player. I'm very surprised we got him. But actually, I'm going to go with Jem Karajan, actually, because we had Spence and Beeston, and we were struggling centre mid early in the season. That was a real concern area. Those two played, to their credit, they were fantastic, and I think they're great players. But adding Karajan, it was that bit of experience that we needed. He just gets stuck in. He's been around the club all season, so that's fantastic. He's obviously his influence stretches beyond the pitch, the fact that he's at Scunthorpe playing in League Two, it's so surprising to me, really. He can play much higher still. He's just added that bit of grit and that sort of bit of know-how that we needed in the middle, and it just allows Neil Cox to rotate. And if Spence or Beeston got injured, we can put Karajan in. And I think those players in January, and certainly him, are predominantly the reason why we are now safe.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good signing. I remember him from his time at Reading, and played for Galatasaray as well.
He did in the Champions League as well. So
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so he's
to Scunthorpe in just 5 years.
He's finally
gone wrong for him, eh?
Finally gone to a big club, eh?
Exactly.
Most impressive opposition player?
Yeah, so this one's interesting to me because, what I love about D3D4 is that obviously you guys have got such a range of knowledge amongst all the squads in the leagues, League 1 and 2. For me, it's very much a case of I have a lot of knowledge about Scunthorpe United and players that have played for us, and that's sort of where it stops for me. So the only way I can sort of really do opposition player is in terms of how who's caused us trouble, if that makes sense. And there's a few. So I think James Vaughan, Tranmere, when we played them away, he always causes us trouble whoever he's playing for. So he did it well there. There was a player, I don't know his name, but there's the right winger at Carlisle. He was very, very good because, Mason O'Malley, what I've said earlier on, he struggled that game. Like this winger he was on it for the whole game.
Jimmy Torre, was it, playing that day?
Potentially, it might have been. It was only
Patrick. It's one of those guys.
It will have been. It was only about 2 games ago, so check the lineups from that. But he was great. And then if you look a little bit further back in the pitch, I mentioned George Taft already, and we were saying a player of that level, he's not getting in at Bolton, and you could see why. When we played Bolton, their 2 centre backs, they bullied our strikers all game. They were really solid, and they looked a good side. And I think that sort of looked to me in the 2 times I've seen them this season like it's a lot of their success has come from the back there.
Yeah, Ricardo Santos has been formidable. Yeah. Baptista's actually done quite well. Both experienced, both good players. So
those are sort of, I guess, who stood out for me, I guess, really this season.
And which opposition team do you think has impressed you the most?
Yeah. Obviously, the ones that have ended up at the top, for me, the 2, like Cheltenham, they looked a good side. But actually, I think the team that impressed me the most was, I think, probably Tranmere. And we played them actually last game as we record this. But I really like the style of play. I think they play quite fast. They seem to move the ball nicely. And both times we've played them, I think the fact that we got a 0-0 against them recently, was a great point from our point of view.
Yeah.
And so both times we played them, they've impressed me, Tranmere, and it's good to see them doing well actually.
Any team that's you've looked at and gone, they're not very good at all? The worst team, maybe?
Beyond ourselves? No, there's been a few. Obviously, Grimsby, obviously they're down there. I thought Crawley as well. And, obviously they've beaten us as well this season. The 0-0 recently, though, they didn't look much. And I think Barrow as well were another one. Unfortunately, because obviously, it's a decent story of them coming up. But, they didn't particularly look all that. I think Crawley, though, in a way, but maybe it was because we didn't play particularly well that match either, and it was just a nothing game, But it was just not a lot from them.
Your most used formation?
Yeah, we've had a few this season. We've played various things, and that's been dictated really because of the amount of injuries we've had this year. We've had an awful lot, so a lot of the time it's been a case of Neil Cox fielding what he can field, basically. We've had a diamond a little bit. We've done that recently. 4-4-2, I think, suits us.
I think so, yeah.
It suits us because we've got the players at the minute to play that, with Issa, with Gilead, that to me, and, Beeston, Karajan in the middle, it's a nice four. The defence is relatively solid. In theory, you get Loft and Kev up front, but reality, that's not happened because of injuries. We've often played just one up front, and I don't like that as the formation because I just think your striker gets too isolated. Our service has been quite poor at the best of times, so I think it really hampers us when you just play one up front. I think we've succeeded when we've just sort of done what we want to do. More often than not, I think those games have tended to be 4-4-2. I think that suits us just because of the players we've got.
Yeah, I agree. I think you look much better playing that formation.
Yeah.
Worst moment of the season? I
think probably the defeat to Grimsby away.
I had a feeling you might say that.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't have that rival with them as much as a lot of other Scunthorpe fans do. It's obviously the game I look forward to the most. I think in many ways if they go down, which it looked likely, it's a shame because it's a good game. It tends to be a good game, and I think the reason why it's the worst moment for me is because it wasn't a good game. It's a local derby with Neil Cox. He started at this club. He knows what this game means. Same with Mark Lillis, his assistant. He knows how big a deal it is for the fans. We lost 1-0, but the worst thing was, it was like they just didn't look up for it. Those players just didn't perform in that game. And it was at a point where we were losing quite a lot. I think there was certain questions about Neil Cox at that point. And it was just the manner they approached this derby game. And I don't know, they just didn't look up for it. And there's been, it's not like it's just new players. There's been players here that played that game before. So they know what it means. And I think the reaction after that amongst the fans was, it was quite hostile. So you were looking for a response, and fortunately we got it the next time we played them, which was actually about 3 weeks later.
Well, that brings me on. What's your best moment then?
Yeah, you could definitely say the reverse fixture because we won 3-0 and it was basically we put it right essentially. And all the interviews, Neil Cox was saying, we have to do this basically. And fortunately we did, and that kickstarted a little bit of a run. So you could say that. I'm actually going to go for a game a bit earlier in the season. We were away at Harrogate and we won 5-2. And
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not just picking it because of the goals, the amount of goals. Obviously, great to score 5. We very rarely do something like that. So it was nice to see that in a season where we've not had many goals, really. But just our overall play that day, it was brilliant. It was like we pretty much dominated the game. We've not done that much this season. The link-up play was excellent. You've got strikers sort of getting in the right position. The service was good. And in many ways, it's frustrating because we've seen that a few times this season. Maybe not to the extent of the Harrogate game, but we've seen it. And it's very much this season has been a case of you don't know which Scunthorpe team's going to come out. If you get that one, brilliant. Great. We could really do something with this league, with the team that we've had this year. Good players for League 2 level. Yeah. And when you have games like Harrogate and you win 5-2 and you dominate in the manner that you do,
it's always nice, isn't it?
You can see the potential. You can see the potential, and in many ways, it's just frustrating that we don't get that very often because, as has been evidenced, they can do it.
Yeah, I agree. What have you missed most about going to stadiums in person?
I think personally, for me, the people I sit with, because I got a season ticket. I've had the same seat for about 12, 13 years now, I think. So the people that I sit around, that tends to be the only time I see them at the game. Obviously, various ages in that group. Another thing I think, and this is quite interesting, what Neil Cox said, and it's probably something that's not been thought of much in terms of iFollow, is that it's great that we've been able to watch the games in some form. And actually, I think for the most part, iFollow has been very good, and all the commentary that's been linked to it. It's been great to see it. You are limited by basically just following the ball, essentially. You're watching what the cameraman sees. And from that, if you're sat in the ground, you're getting the full perspective. So if, for example, if you're on a move and a team get it back and they counter, the first thing you see when they go over the halfway line is sort of where the defenders are. And I imagine it can look a lot worse than it maybe did in the ground, because you're not getting that full perspective. You don't know what the shape was like. Where were those defenders when you were up the other end of the pitch? How were we positioned? So I think I'm missing sort of seeing the full perspective of the pitch.
I think a lot of people will agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And just being able to retain the memory of the match for more than an hour, because I'm finding that they all just blur when you're watching them like this.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, it kind of takes the special, the feeler of it out. So
definitely. Yeah.
Penultimate question then: realistic expectations for next season? I know it's early, but
I'm expecting very similar. I think it's going to be a very similar season for us. I think you look at the players we've got; a lot of them are out of contract, and I think it's very unlikely that we're going to sign them. We know that the budget is going to be cuts, I think, even more than it was this season. So it's going to be a reduced budget. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You can do quite good things on, a small playing budget. It's just how you recruit. We've struggled with recruitment the last couple of years, really. I think we've got it wrong in the summer quite a few times. It's very, very important, that we get it right, because I think we're going to get another season like this anyway. It'd be nice to get a little bit higher up in the table, a mid-table or something like that. But while you're at this position in League Two, if you drop out of the Football League, it's a club our size, it's very difficult to get back up. There's big clubs down in the conference.
Yeah, with big budgets as well compared to someone like
exactly.
Scunthorpe, I imagine. Final question then. Sum up your season in 3 words without swearing.
3 words. I'm glad it's done. I think that's probably about it, really. I'm quite glad it's finished. It's been a long old season.
Indeed. Well, that's brilliant. Brad, thank you so much for joining me for this quickfire review of the Scunthorpe United 2020-21 campaign. Really enjoyed it. Before you go, where can we find you and where can we find your podcast that you host?
So me on Twitter at Bradley Mell, or follow at Ironbru_net, and Ironbru Podcast on basically anywhere you get your podcasts. We're on most of the channels.
Yes, it's Ironbru. Irons Scunthorpe, not the drink, by the way.
Yes, it's IRON. It's not a certain other drink.
That's it. Thank you so much, Brad. Really
Thank you. Very enjoyed it.
Hope you've enjoyed this, guys. Please have a look at the other ones we've done. There'll be plenty of these coming out in the coming weeks. Hope you're enjoying the content. A big thank you to our patrons who help support this. And we'll be back very soon with another quickfire review.